The CEO's one-night stand was forgotten. Until she walked into his office as lead investor with his daughter. 5 years ago, Rodrigo Young made a choice. His voice on the phone was cold, clinical. How much? Misha Harper, 26, pregnant, confused. What? How much money do you want to make this go away? She hung up. He had his lawyers draft the paperwork. $50,000 severance, full NDA, complete waiver of paternal rights. The letter was threatening, mentioned her career, her reputation, suggested she was attempting to extort a powerful man. Rodrigo Young, CEO of Young Enterprises, Stanford MBA, Forbes 30 under 30, 6-figure salary turned 7, untouchable. He forgot she existed. Now, 5 years later, his company is dying. 3 people are dead from his faulty product. A mother and 2 children in Wisconsin are burned alive while sleeping. Lawsuits are bleeding him dry. Stock price in freefall. Department of Justice investigation looming. He needs $900 million to survive, and there's only one investor willing to meet with him, Harper of Harper Capital. He walks into conference room 14B expecting negotiation. Instead, he finds her, the woman from that night, sitting at the head of the table in a black Armani suit, and beside her, a 5-year-old girl with his eyes, his jawline, his dark curly hair. The child looks at him like he's a museum exhibit, cold, curious, completely indifferent. Misha's voice cuts through the silence, surgical and merciless. Mr. Young, my daughter wanted to see what a coward looks like. Now let's discuss how much your dignity is worth. The little girl, Elena, doesn't even look up from her coloring book. And Misha continues. This is Elena. She's 5. She's brilliant, kind, and loved. She's also your daughter, though legally you waived all rights to call her that. She wanted to meet you. I thought it was educational. Then Misha turns to the child. Elena, do you have questions for Mr. Young? The 5-year-old looks up. Her gaze is clinical, detached. She asks, Are you scared right now? Rodrigo's voice cracks. Yes? Elena nods once, matter of fact. Good. Mama says you should be. Then she goes back to coloring. What happened next would cost Rodrigo everything. His reputation, his empire, his soul. Because Misha Harper didn't come to forgive. She came to watch him beg. She came with $900 million he desperately needed and terms designed to humiliate him publicly. She came with a daughter who'd been raised to understand exactly who abandoned her, a daughter who would reject him at every turn, a daughter who would look at him with his own eyes and feel absolutely nothing. Comment where you're listening from. If you're ready for a story about consequences that can't be bought, hit that subscribe button. We bring you the most intense, devastating stories where actions have permanent prices. Your support keeps these narratives coming. Now, let's begin. The call came at 4:47 a.m. on a Monday. Rodrigo Young was already awake, 3 espressos deep into his morning routine, reviewing quarterly projections when his phone lit up. His chief operating officer, voice shaking, Turn on the news, now. Channel 7 had the footage. A house in Madison, Wisconsin, reduced to ash and bone. For firefighters standing in the wreckage, a neighbor crying into a reporter's microphone. I heard the screams. The smoke detectors never went off. The security system never alerted anyone. They burned alive. The camera zoomed in on what was left. A child's bedroom, melted plastic, charred toys. 3 body bags being loaded into a coroner's van. Sarah Mitchell, 34, her daughters Emma, 7, and Sophie, 4. Dead because a $299 AI-powered home security system from Young Enterprises had faulty wiring that sparked, smoldered, and ignited while they slept. By noon, the stock had dropped 40%. By Wednesday, 37 more families came forward. Burns, smoke inhalation, houses destroyed. By Friday, Rodrigo faced 47 lawsuits, a Department of Justice criminal investigation for negligent homicide, and journalists camped outside his building holding photos of the dead children. The headlines were devastating. Tech CEO chose speed over safety, ignored engineer warnings for months, profit over people, the Young Enterprises scandal. They weren't wrong. Rodrigo's head of engineering had flagged the wiring issue 9 months earlier, recommended delaying the launch for additional testing. Rodrigo overrode him. They had a revenue target to hit, investors to impress, a market window to capture. He'd told the engineer, "We'll issue a software patch after launch if needed. Move forward." 3 people died because of that decision. Now Rodrigo sat in his corner office, 47th floor, watching his empire disintegrate in real time. His legal team estimated $900 million to survive. Settlements for the families, full product recall, restructuring, rebranding. Without that capital injection, Young Enterprises would be bankrupt in 11 weeks. He'd pitched every major fund: Sequoia, Andreessen, Benchmark, Tiger Global, 46 rejections. Liability risk, reputational damage. "We don't invest in companies that kill people." His assistant Carmen knocked softly. She was one of 7 employees left who hadn't resigned in protest. "There's one more option, Harper Capital. M. Harper agreed to meet with you, tomorrow, 2 p.m. Rodrigo barely looked up from his laptop. Harper Capital. What's their specialty? Distressed assets, moral turnarounds. They invest in companies others won't touch, but they demand accountability. Perfect. Set it up. He didn't ask who Emma Harper was, didn't look at the file, didn't care. He assumed it was a man, Michael, Marcus, and some opportunistic vulture capitalist who'd smell blood and demand brutal terms. Fine. He'd negotiated worse. He'd built Young Enterprises from a $2 million seed round into a $3 billion empire by being smarter, faster, more ruthless than everyone else. Stanford MBA, Forbes 30 under 30. The press had called him a visionary. He worked 90-hour weeks. He lived alone in a $12 million penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and no photographs. His longest relationship lasted 6 weeks before he got too busy. His father had been the same. Dead at 52, heart attack at his desk, surrounded by contracts and nobody who loved him. Rodrigo saw this as legacy, dedication, proof that greatness required sacrifice. He told a journalist once, "Empathy is expensive. I run a business, not a charity." That quote would haunt him. But right now, sitting in his office watching 3 children's faces on the news, Rodrigo Young felt nothing except the cold mathematics of survival. He needed $900 million. Harper Capital had it. Tomorrow he'd close the deal. He had no idea the woman walking through that door had been waiting 5 years for this exact moment. He had no idea his past was about to destroy his future. He had no idea the price of that $900 million would be everything he had left. 5 years ago, Rodrigo Young didn't believe in fate or destiny or any of that romantic nonsense. He believed in market timing, strategic positioning, and return on investment. So when he walked into the National Tech Summit after-party at the St. Regis Ballroom, he wasn't looking for connection. He was looking for capital, contacts, and competitive intelligence. The room was full of the usual suspects: venture capitalists in expensive casual wear pretending they weren't worth 9 figures, founders practicing their elevator pitches over craft cocktails, tech journalists hunting for the next headline. Rodrigo worked the room efficiently, shaking hands he'd forget in an hour, collecting business cards he'd never use, performing the social rituals required to maintain his reputation as an accessible genius. Then he saw her. She was standing near the bar, alone, not networking, not performing, just observing. Black cocktail dress, simple and elegant, natural hair pulled back. She was reading something on her phone and occasionally glancing up at the crowd with an expression that suggested she found the entire spectacle faintly absurd. Rodrigo was intrigued. Most people at these events were desperately trying to be seen. This woman looked like she'd rather be invisible. He approached. "Let me guess, you're counting the minutes until you can leave without being rude." She looked up, studied him for a moment, then smiled slightly. "I'm at 47 and counting. You?" 63, I have to stay until the keynote speaker finishes his third bourbon and says something he'll regret tomorrow." She laughed. Actually laughed, not the performative networking chuckle. Real amusement. "Misha Harper, Deloitte, Senior Analyst." She extended her hand. "Rodrigo Young, Young Enterprises, CEO." They shook. Her grip was firm, professional, no games. "I know who you are. Read your Series B pitch deck. Impressive growth metrics. Questionable unit economics." Rodrigo blinked. Most people at these events either kissed his ass or pretended they didn't know who he was to seem important. This woman just casually critiqued his business model. Questionable how? Your customer acquisition cost is climbing faster than your lifetime value projections. You're burning through capital to capture market share, but your retention numbers suggest the market doesn't actually want what you're selling long term. You're building a rocket ship with no destination. She said it casually, like she was commenting on the weather. Rodrigo felt something he rarely felt, challenged. That's a surface-level read. The retention metrics don't account for product-market fit timing lag, I know. That's what every overvalued startup says right before they crash. She sipped her drink. But I could be wrong. Maybe you're the exception. The conversation went on for an hour, then 2. They moved from the bar to a corner booth to the hotel's rooftop terrace. They debated market disruption theory, argued about regulatory capture, dissected the economics of platform monopolies. She was brilliant, sharp. She didn't defer to him or flatter him or treat him like some tech deity. She challenged every assumption, poked holes in every argument, made him think harder than he'd thought in months. Somewhere around midnight, the conversation shifted. Less business, more personal. She told him about growing up in Atlanta, being the first in her family to finish college, fighting her way into rooms that didn't want her there. He told her about his father, the heart attack, the empty funeral, the lesson he'd learned about what happened when you let people get too close. "So you just don't?" she asked. "Don't what?" "Let people close." Rodrigo shrugged. "It's simpler, cleaner, no complications." "Lonely, though." "Lonely is just another word for focused." Misha looked at him with something like pity. "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." By 2 a.m. they were the only ones left on the terrace. The city glittered below them. The air was cold and sharp and electric. Rodrigo couldn't remember the last time he'd talked to someone like this. Really talked. Not performed or pitched or strategized. Just talked. "I should go," Misha said, but she didn't move. "You should," Rodrigo agreed. But he didn't want her to. The kiss happened without planning, without calculation, and without any of the careful risk assessment Rodrigo applied to every other decision in his life. It was just heat and want, and the strange, terrifying feeling of wanting something that wasn't on a spreadsheet. They went to his room at the Ritz-Carlton, 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. They talked more. They laughed. They argued about whether algorithms could ever truly predict human behavior. And then they stopped talking. It was the most honest night Rodrigo had spent with another human being in years. Maybe ever. No performance. No strategy. Just 2 people who saw each other clearly and wanted each other anyway. At dawn, Rodrigo's phone started buzzing. Work emergency. A server failure in Singapore. His CTO was panicking. The board was demanding answers. He had a crisis to manage, a company to save, a reputation to protect. Misha was still sleeping, one arm draped across his pillow, face peaceful in the early light. Beautiful. Dangerous. Distracting. Rodrigo got dressed quietly. He looked at her one more time, thought about leaving a note, thought about asking for her number, thought about suggesting they do this again. Then his phone buzzed again. 11 missed calls. Rodrigo Young, CEO, made a choice. He left. No note, no number, no goodbye, just gone. By noon, he'd forgotten her last name. By the end of the week, he'd forgotten what she looked like. By the end of the month, he'd forgotten the conversation entirely. She was just another night, another distraction, another thing he didn't have time for. 3 weeks later, his assistant Carmen buzzed his office intercom. "Mr. Young, there's a Misha Harper online too." "She says it's urgent." Rodrigo didn't recognize the name. He almost told Carmen to take a message. Then something clicked. The conference. The rooftop. The analyst from Deloitte. "Put her through." The line clicked. "Rodrigo?" Her voice was different, shaky, nervous, nothing like the confident woman who'd challenged him over drinks. "Misha, hi, how are—" "I'm pregnant." Silence. Long, terrible silence. Rodrigo's brain went into crisis mode. Calculate, assess, mitigate risk. "I'm pregnant," she repeated. "It's yours. I'm 8 weeks. I needed you to know." Rodrigo's response was automatic, clinical, emotionless. "How much?" "What?" Her voice cracked with confusion. "How much money do you want to make this go away?" The silence on the other end was deafening. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. Excuse me? I'm offering you a solution. Name your price. I'll have my lawyers draft something. NDA, settlement, clean break. No one needs to know." "You think I'm asking you for money? Aren't you?" Another silence. Then, "Go to hell, Rodrigo." She hung up. Rodrigo sat at his desk, staring at the dead phone line. He felt nothing. No panic. No guilt. No curiosity about whether she'd keep it or who the child might become. Just cold, efficient problem-solving. He called his attorney. Corporate litigation specialist. Expensive. Discreet. "I need paperwork drafted, severance agreement. A woman is claiming pregnancy. I need full liability waiver, NDA, termination of any parental rights or obligations. Make it ironclad. How much are you offering?" 50,000. Generous, but not excessive. And make it clear this is a one-time offer. And if she refuses, make the alternative very clear. Mention her career, her reputation. Suggest that attempting to pursue this further would be considered extortion. Make sure she understands what happens to people who try to leverage powerful men. The lawyer paused. "That's aggressive." "That's why I pay you." The letter arrived at Misha Harper's address 4 days later. 3 pages of legal language designed to terrify. It offered $50,000 in exchange for complete termination of any claims, rights, or future contact. It required a full non-disclosure agreement. It waived all paternal rights and obligations. And it included a paragraph that made the threat explicit. Any attempt to contact Rodrigo Young further, to publicly claim paternity, or to pursue any financial or legal remedy would be considered extortion and harassment. The letter mentioned her position at Deloitte, her professional reputation, her future career prospects. It suggested that powerful men had ways of making problems and people disappear. Rodrigo's lawyer called a week later. No response from Ms. Harper, no signature, no contact. She didn't take the money? Apparently not. Then she's smarter than I thought. She knows she can't win. She'll handle it quietly and move on. And if she doesn't? Rodrigo leaned back in his chair, looking out at the city below. Then she'll learn an expensive lesson about challenging people who have more power than she does. He had his assistant block Misha Harper's number. He instructed his legal team to monitor for any public claims. He moved on. Within a month, he couldn't remember her face. Within 3 months, he couldn't remember her name without checking the legal file. Within a year, he'd forgotten she existed at all. Misha Harper became a closed case file in a cabinet. A problem solved. A liability mitigated. A woman who'd made the mistake of thinking one night meant something and learned it didn't. Rodrigo Young went back to building his empire. 90-hour weeks. record growth, Forbes covers. He dated occasionally. Beautiful, uncomplicated women who understood the arrangement was temporary. He fired employees who couldn't keep up. He cut corners to hit targets. He built a reputation as someone who got results no matter the cost. And he never, not once, thought about the woman he'd left sleeping in that hotel room. He never wondered if she kept the baby. He never asked if there was a child somewhere who had his eyes, his DNA, his genetic code. He never considered that choices have consequences that compound over years, that cruelty leaves scars that don't heal, that some debts come due when you least expect them. 5 years later, when his assistant told him Misha Harper from Harper Capital had agreed to meet, Rodrigo Young didn't make the connection. Why would he? He'd long since forgotten that night, forgotten that woman, forgotten that he'd sent lawyers to threaten a pregnant analyst into silence. He walked into conference room 14B expecting negotiation. He found consequences instead. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Misha Harper was 8 weeks pregnant, sitting at her kitchen table in her studio apartment in Brooklyn, eating saltines to keep the nausea down. The envelope was thick, expensive paper, law firm logo embossed in the corner. She opened it with shaking hands, 3 pages of legal language, cold, clinical, designed to destroy. The letter offered her $50,000 to resolve all claims arising from alleged contact with Mr. Rodrigo Young. It required a full non-disclosure agreement. It waived all paternal rights, obligations, and future contact. It stated clearly that by accepting the payment, Misha would be legally barred from ever naming Rodrigo Young as the father, from pursuing child support, from making any public or private claims of paternity. Then came the paragraph that made her hands stop shaking and start clenching. The threat paragraph. It mentioned her position at Deloitte, her promising but fragile career trajectory. It suggested that any attempt to contact Mr. Young further, to make public claims or to pursue legal remedies would be considered extortion and harassment. It noted that Mr. Young had significant resources and legal counsel, and that frivolous claims often result in counter-litigation that can be personally and professionally devastating. The subtext was clear. Take the money and disappear, or we will destroy you. Misha read it 3 times. Then she walked to her bathroom, knelt in front of the toilet, and vomited. Not from morning sickness, from rage. When she was done, she washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror, and made a decision that would change everything. She would never ask Rodrigo Young for a single thing. Not money, not acknowledgement, not an apology, nothing. She would build her own empire. She would raise this child alone. And one day, when she was powerful enough, and she would make absolutely certain Rodrigo Young knew exactly what he'd thrown away, she drafted a response letter that night. 1 sentence, "I don't want your money. Lose my number." She never heard from his lawyers again. 6 months later, Misha went into labor at 2 a.m. on a Friday. She drove herself to the hospital, no one to call, no family to notify. Her parents had disowned her when she told them about the pregnancy. Unmarried, no father in the picture. Her mother had called her a disgrace. Her father said she'd made her bed and could lie in it alone. She had no siblings, no partner, no support system, just herself. The contractions came hard and fast. Misha labored for 14 hours. Alone in a delivery room with fluorescent lights and a nurse who changed shifts twice. Between contractions, she worked. The laptop balanced on the hospital tray. She was closing a $2 million investment deal with a female-led biotech startup. The founder kept apologizing for Misha's heavy breathing during their video call. Misha kept typing between waves of pain. "It's fine. Just give me a second." Contraction. Breathe. Type. "Okay, equity stake looks good. Let's finalize terms." She signed the deal at 6:47 p.m. Elena Harper was born at 7:23 p.m. 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. Screaming. Alive. The nurse placed the tiny, furious creature on Misha's chest. "Congratulations, Mama, she's beautiful. Dad couldn't make it?" Misha looked down at her daughter. Dark, curly hair, eyes that would eventually turn the same piercing gray-blue as Rodrigo's. Tiny fists clenched like she was already ready to fight the world. "No, Dad," Misha said quietly. "Just us." The birth certificate had one line left blank. Father. Unknown. Misha stared at that blank line for a long time before signing. She could have written his name, could have established paternity legally, could have pursued child support. She chose the blank line. She chose erasure. If Rodrigo Young wanted to be nobody, she'd let him be exactly that. Elena Harper, just Harper. No hyphen, no paternal acknowledgement, no genetic compromise. This child was hers alone. Misha left the hospital 36 hours later with a newborn, a laptop, and $100,000 in savings. Everything she had in the world. She'd quit Deloitte when her pregnancy started showing and the whispers started. The sympathetic looks, the questions about the father, the unspoken judgment. She couldn't stomach it. So she walked away and decided to build something of her own. Harper Capital started in that Brooklyn studio apartment. Misha worked 18-hour days with a newborn strapped to her chest. She cold-called founders while breastfeeding. She reviewed pitch decks during 3 a.m. feeding sessions. She closed deals during nap time. Her investment thesis was simple but revolutionary. Fund the people others underestimated. Single mothers building companies between school pickups. Immigrants with brilliant ideas and no connections. Survivors who'd been counted out and refused to stay down. People like her. The establishment laughed. Venture capital didn't work that way. You invested in pedigree. Stanford MBAs, ex-Google executives, founders who looked like every other successful founder. Misha invested in hunger, in resilience, in people who had no safety net and therefore no choice but to succeed. Her first investment was $25,000 in a logistics software company run by a formerly incarcerated woman who couldn't get funding anywhere else. Everyone said Misha was throwing money away. The company sold for $40 million 3 years later. Her second investment was in a refugee-led manufacturing startup, $50,000. The returns were 300%. By the time Elena was 2, Harper Capital managed $15 million in assets. By the time Elena was 3, it was $200 million. By the time Elena was 5, it was $4.2 billion. Misha didn't just invest money. She demanded something every other VC ignored: moral accountability, character mattered, integrity mattered. How you treated people when they couldn't fight back mattered. She had a reputation. Before cutting a check, Misha interviewed everyone: employees, ex-partners, people the founder had fired. She dug deep. And when she found founders who cut corners, who exploited workers, who treated people as expendable, she walked away, no matter how profitable the deal looked. She turned down a billionaire tech founder whose company was projected to 10 times returns. His former assistant told Misha he'd fired her for getting pregnant. Deal died immediately. She rejected a $500 million opportunity because 3 engineers reported the CEO created a hostile work environment. She walked away from unicorn valuations when due diligence revealed ethical compromises. Other VCs thought she was insane. "You're leaving money on the table." Misha's response was always the same: "I'm leaving blood money on the table." There's a difference. Harper Capital became known as the fund with a conscience, the investor who actually gave a damn about who got hurt on the path to profit. Founders either loved her or feared her. There was no in-between. And through it all, Misha raised Elena, alone, fiercely, honestly. When Elena was 4 years old, she asked the question Misha had been dreading. They were reading a bedtime story about a father and daughter going on an adventure. Elena looked up, eyes wide and curious. "Mama, where's my daddy?" Misha's first instinct was to deflect, to soften it. To tell a gentle lie about a father who loved her but couldn't be there. She didn't. She'd promised herself she would never lie to her daughter, not about this. Your father is a man named Rodrigo Young. He's a CEO, very successful. Very powerful. Elena listened carefully. Does he know about me? Yes, baby. He knows. Why doesn't he visit? Misha took a breath. This was the moment, the truth that would shape everything. Because when I told him I was pregnant with you, he offered me money to disappear. He sent lawyers to threaten me. He made it very clear he didn't want to be your father. He chose his company over you. He chose money over you. Elena's face crumpled. Did I do something wrong? Misha pulled her daughter close, fierce and protective. No, you did nothing wrong. You are perfect. He did something wrong. And baby, I need you to remember this. When people show you who they are, believe them. Your father showed me he was someone who abandons people, so I believed him. Do you think he'll change his mind? Misha could have lied. They could have offered hope. She didn't. No, honey, I don't think he will, and that's his loss, because you are brilliant and beautiful and the best thing that ever happened to me. He doesn't get to know you, that's his punishment. Elena was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't need him, I have you. Yes, you do, and I have you, and that's enough. But Misha added one more thing, something she needed Elena to understand completely. Elena, listen to me. Your father is not a good man. He's a successful man. There's a difference. He's rich and powerful and people respect him, but he's not good. He hurts people. He values money over human beings. And one day, you might meet him. If you do, I need you to remember what I'm telling you right now. He's the villain in your story, not the hero. Never the hero. Elena nodded solemnly, absorbing every word. From that day forward, she knew her origin story had a villain, and his name was Rodrigo Young. Elena grew up in a world of strong women, Misha's business partners, her chosen family of other single mothers, the founders Misha invested in who became aunties and mentors, women who'd survived and thrived and refused to let the world break them. Elena learned early that family wasn't biology, it was choice. It was showing up. It was love that stayed. By age 5, Elena Harper was bright, confident, and loved beyond measure. She spoke 2 languages. She could code basic algorithms. She asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. She had everything she needed, except a father. And Misha made absolutely certain Elena understood she didn't need one, especially not him. Meanwhile, Misha tracked Rodrigo Young's career from a distance. She watched him grow Young Enterprises, watched him make Forbes covers, watched him cut corners and fire people and prioritize profit over everything else. She wasn't surprised. She'd seen exactly who he was that dawn morning when he left without a word. She waited, patient, building her empire, building her daughter, building her power. And when Young Enterprises started to crumble, when the product deaths made headlines, when Rodrigo burned through investor after investor, when he was desperate and broken and running out of options, that's when Misha made her move. She didn't call him. She let him come to her. She let him beg for the meeting. And when her assistant confirmed the appointment, Misha did something she'd never done before. She brought Elena. We're going to meet someone today, baby. Someone important. Who? Misha knelt down, looked her daughter in those gray-blue eyes, and said the words she'd been preparing for 5 years. We're going to meet your father. Elena's response was perfect, exactly what Misha had taught her. The man who didn't want me? Yes. Why? Misha smiled, not warm, victorious. Because now he needs us, and he's going to learn what it feels like to be unwanted. The rejections came in a pattern Rodrigo Young had started to recognize. First, the enthusiastic initial response, "We'd love to hear your pitch." Then the due diligence phase where his calls stopped getting returned. Then the email, Always carefully worded, always the same core message. After careful consideration, we've decided to pass on this opportunity at this time. By rejection 30, Rodrigo stopped reading them. By rejection 40, he stopped feeling anything at all. Sequoia passed. Reputation risk. Andreessen Horowitz passed. Cultural concerns regarding leadership. Benchmark passed. Liability exposure too significant. Tiger Global, Lightspeed, Accel, Founders Fund, all passed. Each one cited different reasons, but Rodrigo knew the real issue. The headlines wouldn't stop. 3 dead bodies had a way of dominating news cycles. Tech CEO's faulty product kills family of 3. Young enterprises ignored safety warnings for 9 months. Profit over people inside the culture that led to tragedy. Then came the investigative pieces, long-form journalism that did what journalists do best. Dig. They found the fired chief engineer who'd warned about the wiring flaw and been let go for not being a team player. They found the pregnant employee Rodrigo had terminated for productivity concerns 3 weeks before her due date. They found the pattern of cutting corners, rushing timelines, prioritizing quarterly targets over quality control. One particularly damaging expose in The Atlantic titled "The Efficiency Doctrine: How Silicon Valley's Obsession with Speed Kills" quoted Rodrigo directly from a 2019 podcast interview. Empathy is expensive. Every minute you spend worrying about hurt feelings is a minute you're not spending building. I run a business, not a therapy practice. If you can't handle the pressure, there are plenty of other people who can. The journalist had juxtaposed that quote with photos of Sarah Mitchell and her daughters, the ones who burned alive while Rodrigo's faulty product failed to alert them. The internet did what the internet does. Rodrigo's Wikipedia page now had a controversies section longer than his career section. Reddit threads dissected every business decision he'd ever made. Twitter called him a sociopath, a murderer, a cautionary tale about unregulated tech. His personal Instagram, once full of motivational quotes and conference photos, was now flooded with comments he'd stopped reading. Death threats, accusations, photos of dead children with captions asking if quarterly profits were worth it. Rodrigo deactivated his accounts, stopped reading news, and stopped going outside except to commute between his penthouse and his office. But he couldn't stop the hemorrhaging. Young Enterprises was dying in real time. 11 weeks of cash left. 14 million monthly burn rate in legal fees alone. The DOJ investigation meant criminal exposure. Negligent homicide carried actual prison time. His board had shrunk from 12 members to 4. The rest resigned quietly, releasing carefully worded statements about pursuing other opportunities and philosophical differences. His executive team had imploded. His COO quit with a scathing resignation letter that leaked to the press. His head of product left to join a competitor. His chief marketing officer posted a LinkedIn essay about moral bankruptcy in leadership that went viral. Rodrigo was left with his CFO, Marcus, who stayed purely because his equity was worthless if the company died, his assistant Carmen, who apparently had nowhere better to go, and a skeleton crew of engineers and support staff who showed up because their work visas depended on employment. The office felt haunted. Rows of empty desks, silent conference rooms. The espresso machine that used to run constantly now sat cold and unused. Rodrigo worked from his corner office, door closed, blinds drawn, watching his empire collapse in spreadsheet format. He needed $900 million. That was the number Marcus had calculated. Enough to settle the wrongful death lawsuits, recall every unit sold, restructure operations, rebrand, and have runway to rebuild. Without it, Young Enterprises would file for bankruptcy in 77 days. Rodrigo had pitched 46 investment funds in 6 weeks. Each pitch felt more desperate than the last. He'd refined his deck obsessively. He'd practiced his talking points. He'd offered equity stakes that 6 months ago he'd have called insulting. Nothing worked. The venture capital world had made its decision. Rodrigo Young was uninvestable. His reputation was toxic. His judgment was compromised. His company had killed people. On a Wednesday afternoon in late October, Carmen knocked on his office door. She was 28, competent, eerily calm in the face of disaster. She'd been his assistant for 3 years and had somehow survived the mass exodus. "Mr. Young, I have news." Rodrigo didn't look up from his laptop where he was reviewing yet another brutal article. "Unless it's a term sheet, I don't want to hear it." Harper Capital agreed to a meeting. That got his attention. He looked up. "Harper Capital? I don't know them." "They're a mid-sized fund, $4.2 billion in assets under management. Excellent returns, aggressive deal terms. They specialize in distressed assets and moral turnarounds." Rodrigo's pulse quickened. First time in weeks he'd felt anything resembling hope. Moral turnarounds? Companies with reputational damage. They invest, restructure leadership and culture, and rehabilitate the brand. It's their specialty. "When can we meet?" "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. They specified the Four Seasons, conference room 14B. M. Harper will attend personally. Rodrigo was already opening his laptop, pulling up the pitch deck. "Monsieur Harper, tell me about him." "Her," Carmen corrected. "Actually, I'm not certain. The fund's materials just say M. Harper. No photos, very private." Rodrigo waved dismissively. "Doesn't matter. Set it up. And Carmen, tell Marcus I need him to review the financials one more time. This is our last shot. It needs to be perfect." Carmen nodded and left. Rodrigo spent the rest of the afternoon researching Harper Capital. The fund's website was minimal, clean design, sparse information. Portfolio companies were impressive, mostly led by founders from underrepresented backgrounds. Success rate was remarkable. Harper Capital's investments outperformed industry averages by significant margins. The fund's investment philosophy was stated simply, "We invest in people others underestimate. We demand accountability, integrity, and moral leadership. Capital is a responsibility, not just an asset." It was exactly the kind of earnest, idealistic language that usually made Rodrigo roll his eyes. But right now, he didn't care if they wanted him to personally apologize to every customer. He needed that money. He searched for information about Emmy Harper specifically. Very little available. A few mentions in industry publications. Reclusive. Notoriously selective. Known for turning down deals on character grounds. There were a few photos from conferences, but they were always group shots. Faces partially obscured, no clear view. Rodrigo squinted at one image. Could be a man, could be a woman. The photo quality was terrible, and the person was turned away from the camera. He gave up trying to determine gender. Michael Harper, Marcus Harper, Michelle Harper, Martin Harper, didn't matter. Rich people with money he desperately needed. That's all they were. That evening, Rodrigo worked on his pitch until 2 a.m. He refined every slide. He prepared answers to every possible objection. He knew they'd ask about the deaths, about the safety failures, about his leadership. He prepared humble, accountable responses. "I take full responsibility. The failures were mine. I prioritized growth over safety, and people died because of decisions I made. That's a burden I'll carry forever. But Young Enterprises is more than one tragic failure. We have technology that can transform home security. We have a team, what's left of it, that's talented and committed. We need capital to do this right, to rebuild with safety and integrity as core values, not afterthoughts." He practiced in the mirror. He modulated his tone. He made sure his body language conveyed contrition without weakness. By the time he went to bed, he was confident. Not arrogant. He'd learned that much. But confident. He'd closed harder deals than this. He'd negotiated with people tougher than some idealistic VC who cared about moral investing. He just needed to get in the room, show them the numbers, demonstrate that Young Enterprises was salvageable with proper capital and leadership changes. He'd offer equity, board seats, whatever they wanted. The next morning, Rodrigo dressed carefully. Tom Ford suit, charcoal gray, conservative but expensive, white shirt, no tie, approachable but professional. He left his Patek Philippe in the drawer and wore a simpler watch. No need to look ostentatious when asking for $900 million from someone who apparently cared about ethics. He arrived at the Four Seasons at 1:50 p.m., 10 minutes early. Professional but not desperate. The hotel lobby was elegant, understated luxury. He checked in with the concierge, who directed him to the conference rooms on the third floor. Conference room 14B was at the end of a quiet hallway. Door closed. Rodrigo checked his reflection in a hallway mirror, straightened his jacket, took a breath. Marcus, his CFO, caught up with him, slightly out of breath. "Sorry, parking was a nightmare. We ready?" "We're ready. Remember, let me lead. You handle financial questions if they get technical. Otherwise, stay quiet and look competent." "Got it." They stood outside the door. Rodrigo's heart was beating faster than he wanted to admit. This was it. Rejection number 47, or the deal that saved everything. He knocked. A woman's voice from inside. "Come in." Rodrigo opened the door and stepped into the room. It took him 3 full seconds to process what he was seeing. The conference room was standard. Large table. On leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. At the head of the table sat a woman in a black Armani suit, 30-ish, black, beautiful in a severe, controlled way, flanked by 2 lawyers and an analyst with laptops open. And next to her, in a small chair clearly brought in just for this purpose, sat a child. A little girl, maybe 5 years old, with dark curly hair and a coloring book open in front of her. She was carefully coloring something, tongue poking out in concentration. The woman at the head of the table looked up. Her eyes met Rodrigo's. And he knew. The rooftop conversation, the Ritz-Carlton, the woman who'd challenged him about unit economics and then disappeared from his memory like she'd never existed. Misha. His face went white. His throat closed. His carefully prepared pitch evaporated from his brain. The little girl looked up from her coloring. She had his eyes, his exact eyes. Gray-blue, intense, studying him with clinical curiosity. Misha's voice cut through the silence like a scalpel. "Mr. Young, sit down." Rodrigo couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't process what was happening. Marcus, confused, whispered, "Rodrigo, you okay?" Misha continued, each word deliberate and devastating. "This is Elena. She's 5 years old. She's brilliant, kind, and loved. She's also your daughter, though legally you waived all rights to call her that." The room tilted. Rodrigo felt his legs weaken. He gripped the back of a chair to steady himself. Misha gestured to the empty chairs across from her. "Please, sit. We have a great deal to discuss, starting with how much your company is worth, and more importantly, how much you are worth." Rodrigo sat. Not because he wanted to, because his legs gave out. Elena went back to coloring, completely unbothered, like this was just another meeting, like her father's world wasn't imploding in real time. Misha folded her hands on the table and smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Before we discuss your company's value, Mr. Young, let's discuss yours. Elena, what did you want to ask the man who paid lawyers to threaten your mother into silence?" The little girl looked up. Her gaze was steady, curious, clinical, like she was examining an interesting specimen. "Are you scared right now?" Rodrigo's voice came out broken, barely a whisper. "Yes." Elena nodded once, matter of fact. "Good. Mama says you should be." Then she went back to coloring, and Rodrigo Young, CEO of a dying empire, and sat across from the woman he'd discarded and the daughter he'd erased, and realized that all his preparation, all his carefully rehearsed humility, all his confident assumptions about closing this deal, none of it mattered. Because he wasn't here to negotiate an investment, he was here to face consequences. and Misha Harper was just getting started. Rodrigo sat down because his legs stopped working. Marcus, his CFO, stood frozen in the doorway, confusion written across his face. He hadn't been there that night 5 years ago. He had no idea what he was witnessing. Misha gestured to the empty chairs across from her. "Mr. Young, your associate can sit as well." Marcus moved mechanically to the chair beside Rodrigo, setting down his laptop, glancing between Rodrigo's ashen face and the calm woman at the head of the table. The lawyers flanking Misha were stone-faced, laptops open, recording everything. The analyst to her left had a camera discreetly positioned on the table. This wasn't just a meeting. This was documentation, evidence, a record of what was about to happen. Elena continued coloring. Her little hand moved carefully, staying inside the lines. She was left-handed. Just like Rodrigo. The coloring book showed a princess in a castle. She was making the princess's dress purple. Rodrigo couldn't stop staring at her. The dark curly hair, the sharp jawline that was a softer version of his own, the way her eyebrows furrowed in concentration. His mother had a photo of him at that age with the exact same expression. This was his child, his daughter, a human being he'd tried to erase with a check and legal threats, and she was sitting 3 feet away, eye-coloring, completely uninterested in his existence. Misha let the silence stretch. She was good at this. She'd spent 5 years building a reputation for making powerful people uncomfortable. 30 seconds passed. 60. The only sound was Elena's crayon scratching paper. Finally, Rodrigo found his voice. "Misha, Miss Harper," she corrected coldly. "We're not on a first-name basis, Mr. Young. We never were." The words hit like a slap. Rodrigo swallowed hard. "Mrs. Harper, I didn't know that I was Monsieur Harper? That Harper Capital was mine?" "Yes, I'm aware. You assumed I was a man. Michael, perhaps. Or Marcus. You didn't look closely at any of the materials my office sent. You were too desperate, too arrogant, too certain that whoever walked through that door would be someone you could manipulate." She leaned forward slightly. "I built this company in 5 years, Mr. Young, from $100,000 in savings to $4.2 billion in assets. I did it while raising your daughter alone. I did it after your lawyers threatened my career. I did it after you tried to pay me to disappear. And now you're sitting in my conference room begging me for money to save the company you prioritized over human life. The irony is not lost on me." Marcus finally found his voice. "I'm sorry. What's happening here? Rodrigo, do you two know each other?" Elena looked up from her coloring, interested now. She studied Marcus like he was a new specimen. "That's Mr. Marcus. He works for the man who didn't want me." Her voice was matter-of-fact, a 5-year-old stating a simple truth. Marcus's face went through several expressions: confusion, shock, horror, understanding. He looked at Rodrigo. "Jesus Christ, is she—" "Yes," Misha answered. "Elena is Mr. Young's biological daughter, though he legally waived all parental rights and obligations 5 years ago when he sent his lawyers to threaten me into silence. Isn't that right, Mr. Young?" Rodrigo couldn't speak. His throat had closed completely. Elena went back to coloring. "Mama says he chose money over me. She says that's what cowards do." The word hit Rodrigo like a physical blow. Coward, from the mouth of his 5-year-old daughter. A daughter who spoke about him like he was a stranger, which, he realized with crushing weight, he was. Misha continued, her tone businesslike now. "Shall we begin? You requested this meeting to discuss investment in young enterprises. I'm prepared to hear your pitch, Mr. Young." Please proceed." Rodrigo's brain was short-circuiting. He'd prepared a pitch, slides, talking points, humble accountability paired with financial projections, but that pitch assumed a normal investor, someone who didn't know him, someone who didn't have a 5-year-old living consequence sitting 3 feet away coloring a princess. I don't know if I can do this right now." Misha's expression didn't change. "You flew through 46 other pitches in 6 weeks. You've had no problem asking strangers for $900 million. Surely you can ask the mother of your child, or is it harder when you have to look at what you abandoned? One of the lawyers, a severe woman in her 50s, spoke up. Ms. Harper, for the record, Mr. Young appears emotionally compromised. Should we reschedule? No, Misha said firmly. Mr. Young came here for an investment meeting. He'll get one. Mr. Young, your pitch? Now. Rodrigo looked at Marcus, who was still processing the nuclear bomb that had just detonated in the room. Marcus gave a small nod, then opened his laptop with shaking hands and pulled up the pitch deck on the screen at the end of the conference table. The first slide appeared, Young Enterprises logo. Building the future of home security. It felt obscene in this context. Rodrigo forced himself to speak, his voice hollow. Young Enterprises is an AI-powered home security company. We've built proprietary technology that integrates— Skip the overview, Misha interrupted. I've read your materials. Get to the failure, the deaths, the recall. That's what this pitch is really about, isn't it? You need money because your faulty product killed 3 people and now you're facing bankruptcy. Rodrigo flinched. Yes, there was a catastrophic product failure. A catastrophic product failure, Misha repeated slowly. Is that what you call it when a mother and her 2 daughters burn alive because your company's security system had faulty wiring that you knew about for 9 months? Elena stopped coloring. She was listening now, eyes wide. Rodrigo felt sick. This conversation was happening in front of his daughter, a 5-year-old hearing about people burning to death because of decisions he'd made. Ms. Harper, please, can we what? Protect her from the truth? She lives in truth, Mr. Young. That's how I raised her. She knows who you are. She knows what you did to me. She might as well know what you did to other people, too. Misha turned to Elena. Baby, why don't you go sit with Sarah for a few minutes? The grown-ups need to talk about boring business stuff. One of the lawyers, the younger one, stood and extended a hand to Elena. Come on, sweetheart. We'll get some cookies from downstairs. Elena looked at her mother. Can I come back? If you want to. I want to. The little girl closed her coloring book carefully, picked up her juice box and walked to the door with Sarah. As she passed Rodrigo's chair, she paused, looked up at him, studied his face like she was memorizing it. Then she said, in that clear, devastating voice children have, You look sad. Mama says you should feel sad, because you did bad things. Then she left. The door closed behind her. Silence filled the room like poison gas. Misha let it sit for a long moment, then opened a manila folder in front of her. Let's begin the real pitch, Mr. Young. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to answer them honestly. If you lie, this meeting ends, and you'll never hear from me again. Understood? Rodrigo nodded, not trusting his voice. Good. Question 1. How many safety tests did you skip to meet your launch date? Rodrigo's mouth went dry. We didn't skip them. We expedited. You skipped them. Your former chief engineer, David Morrison, documented 7 separate safety protocols that were bypassed or abbreviated to hit your Q4 launch window. I have his testimony. I have his emails. I have the Slack messages where he warned you directly about the wiring flaw. So I'll ask again, how many safety tests did you skip? Rodrigo's hands were shaking. 7. And why did you skip them? To meet our launch deadline. You'd promised investors a product that quarter, so you released a product you knew might be unsafe to keep your stock price up. We didn't know it would— Yes, you did. Misha pulled out a printed email and slid it across the table. September 14th, 5 months before the Wisconsin fire. David Morrison to you directly. Rodrigo, the wiring configuration in units manufactured at the Shenzhen facility has a documented failure rate of 4.2% under prolonged heat exposure. If we launch without redesign, we're looking at potential fire risk in thousands of homes. We need to delay. Your response? Rodrigo stared at the email. He remembered it. God, he remembered it. I told him we'd issue a software patch after launch if problems emerged. A software patch. For a hardware wiring flaw. Misha's voice was surgical. Did you actually believe that would work, or were you just lying to yourself? You thought your stock options were more valuable than human life. Question 2. When did you first know about the Wisconsin deaths? When the news broke, Monday morning. Lie. Misha pulled out another document. Your crisis management team was alerted Saturday evening, 14 hours before media coverage. You had a conference call with legal at 11 p.m. Saturday where you discussed media strategy. Your first concern, documented in meeting notes, was stock price impact. Your second concern was DOJ investigation risk. Concern for the victims appears nowhere in 32 pages of meeting minutes. Would you like to revise your answer? Rodrigo felt sweat running down his back. I was informed Saturday evening. And what was your first reaction? I was concerned about legal exposure. Not about the dead family, about legal exposure. Yes. Say it completely. For the record. Rodrigo forced the words out. My first reaction when learning that 3 people died using my product was concern about legal and financial exposure, not about the victims. One of the lawyers was typing rapidly, every word documented. Misha continued, relentless. Question 3. You fired David Morrison, your chief engineer, 3 months before the Wisconsin fire. He'd been with you since founding. Strong performance reviews, multiple patents in his name. Why did you fire him? He wasn't aligned with company culture. Be specific. He kept raising concerns that were slowing us down. He didn't understand the pressure we were under to what? To grow faster? To hit targets? So you fired the person who was trying to prevent exactly what happened, and you replaced him with whom? Rodrigo's voice was barely above a whisper. Someone less experienced who wouldn't push back. Someone who would do what you said without questioning your decisions, even when those decisions were dangerous. Yes. Marcus was staring at Rodrigo like he'd never seen him before, horror and disgust mixing on his face. Misha wasn't done. Question 4. You fired a pregnant employee named Jennifer Lawson 8 months ago, 3 weeks before her due date. Her termination paperwork cited performance issues, but she had excellent reviews prior to her pregnancy. Why did you really fire her? This isn't relevant to... Everything about your character is relevant, Mr. Young. I don't invest in companies, I invest in people, so answer the question. Rodrigo closed his eyes. She was taking too much time off for medical appointments. It was affecting her productivity. She was high risk. Her doctor required weekly monitoring. She'd arranged to work remotely. But you fired her anyway. We needed people who could be in the office. You needed people who wouldn't remind you that human beings have bodies and lives and needs beyond making you richer. Just like you needed me to disappear when I reminded you that sex sometimes results in pregnancy. The connection hung in the air, and obvious and damning. Misha leaned back in her chair. Let me tell you what I see, Mr. Young. I see a man who treats human beings as expendable resources, who values quarterly results over safety, who fires anyone who inconveniences him with ethical concerns or biological realities, who abandons women who complicate his narrative, who lets children die rather than delay a product launch, who sits in front of me now, not because he's changed, but because he finally ran out of options. She closed her folder. This meeting is over. Rodrigo's head snapped up. Wait. You came here for investment capital. You will not receive it. Not from me. Not under any terms. Please, I have 5,000 employees. You should have thought about them before you prioritized your stock options over their lives. Before you created a culture where safety concerns were punished instead of heard. Before you made the decisions that killed 3 people. Marcus finally spoke up, his voice shaking. Ms. Harper, I understand your anger, but there are thousands of people who will lose their jobs if Young Enterprises fails, people who had nothing to do with these decisions. Misha looked at him with something almost like sympathy. Mr. Marcus, I've read your profile. You're a good CFO. You've tried to implement ethical guidelines. You've pushed back where you could, which is why I'll make you an offer. When Young Enterprises enters bankruptcy, which it will in approximately 73 days, I'll fund a management buyout. New ownership, new leadership, new culture. The employees can be saved. The company can be restructured. But she pointed at Rodrigo, will have no part in it. He'll be bought out at current share price, which is essentially nothing. He'll leave with the reputation he earned, and that's more mercy than he showed anyone else. Rodrigo stood up, panic finally breaking through the shock. You can't do this. I built this company. It's mine. You destroyed this company, Misha corrected. You just haven't admitted it yet. The bankruptcy is inevitable. I'm simply offering a way to save the people you put at risk. But you don't get saved, Rodrigo. You get exactly what you deserve. Consequences. The door opened. Elena walked back in, cookie in hand, and climbed back into her small chair. She picked up her crayon and resumed coloring. Misha stood, signaling the meeting was truly over. Her lawyers began packing their materials. My team will contact Mr. Marcus directly about the buyout terms. You, Mr. Young, will not be part of those conversations. If you attempt to contact me again, I'll file a restraining order. Rodrigo looked at Elena, at this little girl who had his eyes and his left-handed grip and absolutely zero connection to him. Can I at least... He didn't know how to finish the sentence. Talk to her? Apologize? Explain? Elena looked up from her coloring. Are you still sad? Yes? She considered this, then went back to her drawing. That's good. Mama says you should feel sad for a very long time. Then, almost as an afterthought, maybe forever. Misha placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Protective. Final. Goodbye, Mr. Young. You've taken up enough of our time. Rodrigo stood there, frozen, as Misha gathered Elena and her materials. As the lawyers filed out, as Marcus stood and quietly followed them, unable to look Rodrigo in the eye. As the door closed, as he was left alone in conference room 14B with his pitch deck still glowing on the screen and the crushing weight of exactly what he'd lost. Not just the investment, not just the company. He'd lost something he didn't even know existed until 45 minutes ago. He'd lost his daughter. And the look in that 5-year-old's eyes told him something he'd spend the rest of his life trying to deny. She was right. He should feel sad forever. Because some mistakes don't get fixed, some bridges don't get rebuilt, some consequences last exactly as long as they should. Rodrigo Young had spent 34 years believing he could outrun accountability. Today, in a conference room overlooking a city he thought he owned, he learned what every cruel man eventually learns. Someday, somewhere, the people you hurt get powerful enough to hurt you back, and mercy is something you should have practiced when you had the chance. Rodrigo didn't leave the conference room for 20 minutes after they left. He sat in the leather chair staring at nothing, his brain trying to process what had just happened. Marcus had disappeared without a word. Rodrigo's phone buzzed repeatedly. Texts, emails, calls, but he couldn't make himself look at it. When he finally stood, his legs were unsteady. He took the elevator down to the lobby in silence, walked past the concierge who nodded politely, stepped out into the late afternoon sun that felt too bright, too normal, too indifferent to the fact that his world had just ended. He went back to his office. The building was nearly empty. Most employees had quit or stopped showing up. The ones who remained moved through the hallways like ghosts, avoiding eye contact, counting down to the inevitable bankruptcy. Rodrigo locked his office door, closed the blinds, and did something he hadn't done since his father's funeral. He cried. Not pretty, cinematic tears. Ugly, gasping sobs that hurt his chest and made his face burn. He cried for the daughter he'd never known, for the woman he'd treated like garbage, for the family that died in Wisconsin because he'd prioritized a launch date over their lives, for the empire he'd built on foundations of cruelty and convenience. When he was done, he felt hollow, empty, like everything inside him had been scooped out and thrown away. His phone buzzed again. This time he looked. A text from Marcus. "I'm out. Effective immediately. I can't work for you anymore. Harper Capital contacted me directly. They're offering me the CEO position when the buyout goes through. I'm taking it. I'm sorry, Rodrigo, but not sorry enough to stay." Rodrigo stared at the message. His CFO. The one person he thought might remain loyal. Gone. He drafted 3 different responses and deleted them all. What was there to say? For 3 days, nothing happened. No calls, no emails, no contact from Harper Capital or Misha or anyone connected to her. Rodrigo existed in a kind of suspended animation. He went to the office but did no work. He sat at his desk and stared at the city below, watching people move through their lives, and wondered what it felt like to be someone who hadn't destroyed everything they touched. On the 3rd day, Carmen knocked on his door. Her face was carefully neutral. "Mr. Young, a courier delivered this for you, from Harper Capital's legal team." She handed him a thick manila envelope and left before he could respond. Rodrigo opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a term sheet. 23 pages. Legal letterhead. Harper Capital logo at the top. The first page was a cover letter, signed by Misha's attorney. "Mr. Young, Mrs. Harper has reconsidered her position. Harper Capital is prepared to offer investment funding for young enterprises under the terms outlined in the attached agreement. You have 48 hours to review and sign. This offer expires at 5 p.m. Friday. There will be no negotiation, no amendments, no second chances. Accept these terms in full or reject them entirely. The choice is yours." Rodrigo turned to the term sheet itself. Investment terms. Harper Capital agrees to invest $900 million in young enterprises in exchange for 1. Equity stake, 45% ownership of young enterprises, with 2 board seats appointed by Harper Capital and veto power over all major strategic decisions. 45%. Nearly half his company, but he'd offered that much to Sequoia. This wasn't shocking. He read on. 2. Leadership transition. Rodrigo Young will step down as Chief Executive Officer immediately upon execution of this agreement. He will be offered the position of Founder Advisor, non-executive, non-voting, for a period of 6 months, after which his employment will be terminated. Marcus Chen will assume the role of CEO under Harper Capital oversight. Rodrigo felt the words like a punch. Step down, immediately, his company, the thing he'd built from nothing. And they were installing Marcus, who'd already abandoned him. But he kept reading. 3. Public accountability statement. Within 72 hours of signing this agreement, Rodrigo Young will participate in a press conference where he will publicly acknowledge the following. A. That he abandoned Misha Harper when she informed him of her pregnancy 5 years ago. B. That he sent legal threats designed to intimidate her into silence. C. That he has a daughter, Elena Harper, whom he has never met or supported. D. That he takes full responsibility for the safety failures that resulted in 3 deaths. E. That he prioritized profit over human safety and deeply regrets these decisions. This statement will not be scripted by PR professionals. It will be delivered in Mr. Young's own words, unfiltered and unrehearsed. Questions from media will be permitted. Rodrigo's hands started shaking. A press conference, admitting to abandoning his daughter, admitting to the safety failures, unfiltered. The media would destroy him. They'd already been brutal. This would be a public execution. 4. Personal financial accountability. Rodrigo Young will personally donate $50 million to a victims fund established for the families affected by the Young Enterprises product failure. This donation will be made from Mr. Young's personal assets, not company funds. $50 million, a third of his liquid net worth. His stomach turned. 5. Apology tour. Rodrigo Young will meet personally with each family affected by the Young Enterprises product failure. These meetings will be arranged through a neutral mediator. Mr. Young will listen to their statements and answer their questions. He will not bring lawyers. He will not attempt to limit liability. These meetings will be recorded for potential use in ongoing litigation. They wanted him to face the families, without lawyers, without protection, recorded. Every word he said could be used against him in court. 6. Legal paternity acknowledgement. Rodrigo Young will legally acknowledge paternity of Elena Harper through DNA, testing, and court filing. He will be listed as father on an amended birth certificate. There it was, legal acknowledgement, no more erasure. Elena would have his name permanently attached to her identity, whether she wanted it or not. 7. Supervised visitation rights. Rodrigo Young will be granted supervised visitation with Elena Harper, subject to the following conditions. A. Visitation will occur at a neutral location with a licensed child psychologist present. B. Initial visitation, 2 hours every other Sunday. C. Elena Harper retains the right to refuse visitation at any time for any reason. D. Misha Harper retains sole legal and physical custody. E. Rodrigo Young will complete court-mandated parenting classes and therapy before first visitation. F. Rodrigo Young waives all parental rights except supervised visitation as described above. Rodrigo read this section 3 times. They were offering him access to his daughter, 2 hours, every other week, if she agreed. If she didn't refuse, supervised by a psychologist like he was dangerous, which he supposed he was. 8. Ongoing behavioral requirements. As a condition of this investment, Rodrigo Young agrees to A. Undergo therapy for a minimum of 2 years, with quarterly progress reports provided to Harper Capital. B. Complete courses in ethical leadership and corporate responsibility. C. Refrain from serving in executive leadership at any company for 5 years. D. Make no public statements about Harper Capital, Misha Harper, or Elena Harper without prior written approval. They were putting him in timeout. Therapy, classes, a 5-year ban on leadership positions. Silence. Rodrigo reached the final page, the clause that broke him. Termination conditions. This agreement is contingent upon Rodrigo Young's complete and ongoing compliance with all terms described above. Any violation of these terms, including but not limited to failure to complete the public statement, failure to attend scheduled meetings with victims' families, failure to attend therapy or parenting classes, or any attempt to contact Elena Harper outside of approved supervised visitation, will result in immediate termination of this agreement and forfeiture of all rights granted herein. Furthermore, Elena Harper's consent to visitation is required for all scheduled meetings. Should Elena Harper decline visitation on 3 consecutive occasions, visitation rights will be suspended indefinitely pending review by the supervising psychologist. Rodrigo Young will have no recourse or appeal process for such suspensions. Ms. Harper retains the right to modify custody arrangements, visitation schedules, or other terms related to Elena Harper's welfare at her sole discretion. Mr. Young waives any right to contest such modifications. Final notice. This offer expires Friday at 5 p.m. No extensions will be granted. Accept these terms in full or reject them entirely. Rodrigo set down the papers. His hands were shaking so badly the pages rustled. They were offering him salvation, $900 million to save the company and the jobs of 5,000 people, a chance, however small, to meet his daughter. But the price was everything: his reputation, his wealth, his position, his dignity, public confession, victim meetings, therapy, supervised visits with a child who already hated him, a child who could refuse to see him anytime she wanted, a child whose mother controlled every aspect of his access to her, and all of it contingent on perfect compliance. One mistake and he'd lose everything: the investment, the company, the daughter. It wasn't a term sheet. It was a prison sentence. Rodrigo picked up his phone with trembling fingers and dialed the number on the cover letter. Misha's attorney answered on the first ring. "This is Richard Chen, counsel for Harper Capital." "I need to speak with Misha Harper." "Ms. Harper is not available. All communications must go through—" "Put her on the phone. Now." A pause. Then, "Hold, please." The line clicked. 30 seconds passed. Then her voice, cold and clinical. "Mr. Young, this is extortion." "No. Extortion is what your lawyers did to me when I was pregnant and alone, when they threatened my career, when they suggested I was trying to trap you, when they made me feel like I was the problem instead of you." Her voice was steady. "No emotion, just facts. What you're holding is capitalism, Mr. Young. You need capital. I have it. These are my terms. You taught me how this works. The person with power sets the conditions. The desperate person decides whether to accept them. You're asking me to humiliate myself publicly, to give up my company, to pay $50 million, to... I'm asking you to take accountability, something you've never done in your entire life, something you should have done 5 years ago when I called you, something you should have done 9 months ago when your engineer warned you about the wiring flaw, something you should have done the moment you learned 3 people died." Rodrigo was pacing now, phone pressed to his ear. "The visitation terms are designed to fail. Elena will never agree to see me. You've raised her to hate me. I've raised her to know the truth. That her father chose to abandon her, that he sent lawyers instead of love. So if she chooses not to see you, that's her right. That's the consequence of your choice 5 years ago." "This isn't fair." Misha laughed. Actually laughed. It was bitter and sharp. "Fair? You want to discuss fair? Was it fair when you left me sleeping in that hotel room without a word? Was it fair when you asked me how much, like I was a problem you could price? Was it fair when your lawyers threatened my career? Was it fair when I gave birth alone while you were closing deals and forgetting I existed? Was it fair when Sarah Mitchell's daughters burned alive because you couldn't be bothered to delay a product launch?" Her voice rose slightly, the first crack in her composure. "You don't get to talk to me about fair, Rodrigo. You lost that right 5 years ago. You lost it again when you fired people who tried to save lives. You lost it every single time you chose convenience over consequences." Rodrigo stopped pacing. He stared out the window at the city below. "What if I refuse? What if I don't sign? Then Young Enterprises enters bankruptcy in 70 days. 5,000 people lose their jobs. You lose everything anyway, but you lose it without any chance, however small, of meeting your daughter. You lose it without the possibility of ever making this right. You end up alone with nothing and no one. Is that what you want? I want normal terms, reasonable equity, a chance to rebuild without... You don't get normal, Rodrigo. Normal is for people who make normal mistakes. You made catastrophic ones. These terms reflect that reality. You're punishing me. No, I'm giving you a choice. Sign the papers and take responsibility. Meet your daughter, if she'll have you. Try to become someone better than who you've been. Or refuse, lose everything anyway, and spend the rest of your life knowing you had one chance to do the right thing and didn't take it." Silence on the line. Then Misha's voice, quieter now but no less firm. "You have 48 hours, Rodrigo. I suggest you spend them thinking about who you want to be. Because the person you've been, that person deserves everything that's coming to him." "And if I sign? If I do all of this, will you forgive me?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I don't know. Ask me in 5 years. Ask me after you've sat through therapy and faced those families and tried, really tried, to be a father to Elena. Ask me when you've proven this isn't just another transaction, just another deal you're closing to get what you want. Will she ever forgive me? Elena? I don't know that either. She's 5 years old. She's smart and she's loved and she knows you abandoned her. Whether she can ever forgive that? That's not up to me. It's up to you to earn it and up to her to give it. But I'll tell you this. if you sign these papers and then treat this like a performance, if you show up to visitation like it's a business meeting you have to endure, if you check boxes without changing who you are, she'll know, children always know, and you'll lose her forever. Rodrigo felt something break inside him. Not his pride, that was already shattered. Something deeper. The thing that had kept him separate from consequences his entire life. 48 hours, Misha repeated. The choice is yours. The line went dead. Rodrigo stood in his empty office, looking at the term sheet spread across his desk. 23 pages that would either save him or destroy him, maybe both. He thought about Elena, coloring her princess, asking if he was scared, saying he should feel sad forever. He thought about Sarah Mitchell and her daughters, 3 body bags, charred toys. He thought about Misha, 26 and pregnant, receiving legal threats from lawyers. He thought about every person he'd fired, every corner he'd cut, every time he'd chosen efficiency over humanity, and he realized that for the first time in his life, he couldn't calculate his way out, couldn't negotiate better terms, couldn't charm or manipulate or avoid. He had exactly 2 options: face what he'd done or run from it forever. Rodrigo picked up a pen. His hand hovered over the signature line. The 48 hours. The clock was ticking. Rodrigo signed the papers at 11:47 p.m. on Thursday night, 47 hours and 13 minutes after receiving them. He'd spent 2 days reading and rereading every clause, looking for escape routes that didn't exist, calling lawyers who told him he had no leverage, staring at his phone, hoping for a better option that never came. In the end, he signed because the alternative was losing everything with 0 chance of redemption. At least this way, he had a chance. However small, however painful. The money transferred within 6 hours. $900 million moved from Harper Capital's accounts into Young Enterprises' restructuring fund. Marcus sent a brief email confirming receipt and outlining the transition plan. He didn't address Rodrigo directly. The press conference was scheduled for Monday morning. Rodrigo's PR team, what was left of it, spent the weekend drafting a statement. They workshopped every word, every pause, every gesture. They crafted something that sounded apologetic without admitting too much liability, humble without appearing weak, accountable without being pathetic. It was a masterpiece of corporate crisis management. Misha's lawyers rejected it in 47 minutes. The email from Richard Chen was brief. Ms. Harper has reviewed the proposed statement. It is unacceptable. The language is too polished, too calculated, too obviously written by professionals attempting to minimize damage. Ms. Harper demands that Mr. Young speak without a script. No prepared remarks, no teleprompter, no carefully workshopped messaging. He will stand at the podium and speak from his own words about what he did and why it was wrong. He will answer questions from journalists without PR handlers intervening. If Mr. Young cannot do this, the investment agreement will be voided immediately. Rodrigo read the email 3 times, feeling his stomach drop further with each read. They wanted him unfiltered, raw, vulnerable, exposed, everything he'd spent his entire career avoiding. His remaining PR advisor, a woman named Stephanie who'd stuck around purely for the severance package, looked at him with something like pity. She wants you to fail. You understand that, right? She's setting you up to be destroyed. Rodrigo nodded slowly. I know. Then don't do it. Walk away. Declare bankruptcy. Start over somewhere else. There is no somewhere else. I'm untouchable. And I have a daughter I've never met. Stephanie closed her laptop. Then God help you, because Monday is going to be a bloodbath. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. The press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the Young Enterprises headquarters. Rodrigo had wanted a neutral location, a hotel conference room, somewhere without his company's branding everywhere. But Misha's team insisted. He would stand in front of the logo he'd built while confessing to the failures that destroyed it. Media started gathering at 8 a.m. News vans lined the street. Camera crews set up positions. Reporters did sound checks and rehearsed their questions. By 9:30, there were over 200 people crowded into the building's lobby where the makeshift press area had been established. Rodrigo watched from his office window. He'd barely slept in 3 days. His suit hung looser than it had a month ago. His face was gaunt, stubble visible because he'd forgotten to shave. He looked like exactly what he was, a man who'd lost everything. At 9:45, Stephanie knocked on his door. "It's time." Rodrigo followed her down the hallway. His footsteps echoed in the empty building. They passed vacant desks and dark offices. The company was a corpse pretending to breathe. They entered the lobby through a side door. The noise hit him immediately. Cameras clicking, reporters talking, someone shouting questions already. The podium stood at the center of the room, Young Enterprises logo behind it, microphones clustered like an accusation. Rodrigo walked to the podium on legs that felt like they might give out. The room quieted, every camera trained on him, every eye watching, waiting. He'd given hundreds of presentations, keynotes at conferences, investor pitches, TED Talks. He'd always been smooth, confident, in control. Now he stood behind the microphone with no script, no plan, no armor, just the truth he'd spent 5 years avoiding. He gripped the edges of the podium and began. 5 years ago, a woman told me she was pregnant with my child. His voice cracked on the word child. He swallowed hard and continued. Her name is Misha Harper. We'd spent one night together. When she called to tell me, I didn't ask how she was. I didn't ask what she needed. I asked how much money it would take to make her disappear. The cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. I sent lawyers, not to help her, to threaten her. The letter they sent suggested she was trying to extort me. It threatened her career. It was designed to terrify her into silence. I didn't do this because I didn't believe her. I did it because I didn't want to deal with the complication. I chose my company over my child. Rodrigo's hands were shaking. He gripped the podium harder. I never asked her name, my daughter. I never asked what she was calling her. I never checked if she was okay. I never sent money for prenatal care or birth or anything else. I had my assistant block Misha's number, and I forgot she existed. A reporter shouted, Did you know you had a daughter all these years? Rodrigo shook his head. No, I assumed Misha had, handled it. I didn't think about it. I didn't want to think about it. I buried it like it never happened. And now? Now I know I have a 5-year-old daughter named Elena. I met her for the first time a week ago. She asked me if I was scared. I said yes. She said good, I should be. She's right. His voice broke completely. He stopped, breathing hard, trying to hold himself together. The room was dead silent. I'm also here to address the product failure that killed Sarah Mitchell and her daughters, Emma and Sophie. Rodrigo looked directly at the cameras. 9 months before their deaths, my chief engineer warned me about a wiring flaw. He documented it. He sent me emails. He told me we needed to delay the launch and redesign the system. I overruled him. I told him we'd patch it after launch if problems emerged. But you can't patch a hardware flaw with software. I knew that. He knew that. I did it anyway because I wanted to hit our revenue targets. I fired him 3 months later because he kept raising concerns that slowed us down. A different reporter. Did you know people could die? I knew there was a risk. I chose to ignore it. I chose profit over safety. 3 people are dead because of that choice, because I wanted to keep my stock price up, because I cared more about looking successful than being responsible. The questions came faster now, overlapping, aggressive. Are you resigning as CEO? Yes, effective today. Will you face criminal charges? That's up to the Department of Justice. I'll cooperate fully with their investigation. What about the families? What do you say to them? Rodrigo looked toward the lobby doors where he knew they were waiting. Misha's team had told him the victims' families would be present. He'd asked them not to come. They'd ignored him. There's nothing I can say that will bring back Sarah, Emma, and Sophie. There's no apology that makes this right. I made decisions that killed them. I'll carry that for the rest of my life. I've established a $50 million victims fund from my personal assets. It won't bring them back, but it's the only thing I can offer. Is that supposed to make us feel better? The voice came from the back of the room, sharp, furious. A woman pushed through the reporters. Carla Mitchell, Sarah's mother, grandmother to Emma and Sophie. Rodrigo recognized her from photos. She was holding a poster board with their pictures on it, school photos, smiling children who would never grow up. "You killed my daughter!" Carla's voice shook with rage. "You killed my grandbabies!" And you stand there talking about stock prices and revenue targets like they were numbers on a spreadsheet. Security moved toward her, but she kept shouting, "You're a murderer! You killed them and you don't even care! You're only here because you got caught, because you need money! You're sorry you got exposed, not sorry for what you did!" Rodrigo didn't defend himself, didn't have security remove her. He stood there and took it because she was right. "You abandoned your own child." Carla was crying now, rage and grief pouring out. What kind of monster abandons their baby and then kills someone else's? You're not human. You're a... Her voice broke into sobs. Her husband appeared, gently pulling her back. But not before she screamed one more thing. "I hope your daughter never forgives you. I hope she hates you forever. I hope you die alone knowing what you did." The room erupted. More families pushed forward, more photos of the dead, more shouting. Rodrigo stood at the podium, cameras capturing every second of his destruction, and let them scream. When the press conference finally ended, security clearing the room after 40 brutal minutes, Rodrigo walked back to his office on autopilot. His phone was exploding, thousands of notifications, headlines already running. Tech CEO admits abandoning daughter in tearful confession. Young Enterprises founder resigns amid scandal. Victim families confront CEO, "You're a murderer." By noon, his mother called. She'd seen the news. Everyone had seen the news. "Rodrigo." Her voice was thick with tears. "How could you?" "Mom, A baby. You abandoned a baby. You sent lawyers to threaten a pregnant woman. How could you do that? How did I raise someone capable of that? I made mistakes. I'm trying to... Mistakes." She was crying harder now. "Mistakes are forgetting someone's birthday. Mistakes are saying something thoughtless. You destroyed lives. You killed people. You abandoned your own child. That's not mistakes. That's..." She couldn't finish. The line went silent, except for her crying. "Mom, please." "I can't talk to you right now. I need time." She hung up. Rodrigo stood holding the dead phone, feeling something inside him crack further. An hour later, his uncle, his father's brother, the family patriarch, released a statement to media. Rodrigo read it on Twitter before anyone called to warn him. The Young family is horrified by the revelations regarding Rodrigo's personal and professional conduct. "We had no knowledge of his abandonment of a child or his role in the tragic deaths that resulted from negligent leadership. Rodrigo's actions do not reflect the values our family holds. We are praying for the victims, for Misha Harper and her daughter, and for Rodrigo to find genuine redemption. But we must distance ourselves from decisions we cannot defend." They disowned him. Publicly, completely. Rodrigo had never felt more alone. The apology tour began the following week. Misha's team had arranged meetings with each affected family. Neutral locations, licensed mediators present, everything recorded. The first meeting was with Thomas Reynolds, father of 7-year-old Kayla, who'd suffered third-degree burns over 40% of her body. She'd survived, but faced years of surgeries and permanent scarring. And Thomas sat across from Rodrigo in a beige conference room that smelled like industrial cleaner. His face was hard, unforgiving. "Why are you here?" Thomas asked. "To apologize, to listen, to try to understand what I took from..." You took my daughter's childhood. You took her face. You took years of her life that she'll spend in hospitals instead of playing with friends. Why? For what? A few $1,000,000? Rodrigo had no answer that wouldn't sound like an excuse. I prioritized the wrong things. I'm sorry. Sorry? Thomas laughed bitterly. You know what Kayla asked me last week? She asked if she's a monster, because kids at school won't look at her, because her face is scarred and it terrifies them. She's 7 years old and she thinks she's a monster because of you. I know my apology doesn't. You're right, it doesn't. You want to know what would help? Invent a time machine. Go back and make the ethical choice you should have made. Short of that, there's nothing you can do, nothing you can say. You destroyed my family and you get to walk away with millions. How is that justice? It's not. Damn right it's not. The meeting lasted 90 minutes. Rodrigo sat and listened to Thomas detail every surgery, every screaming nightmare, every moment his daughter had suffered because Rodrigo chose profit over safety. He didn't defend himself, didn't make excuses, just absorbed the pain he'd caused. The second meeting was worse. The third, worse still. Each family had their own specific hell he'd created. Each parent had rage and grief they'd been holding for months. They unleashed it all on him, and he took it because it was the least he owed them. Between meetings, Rodrigo tried to connect with Elena. Misha had agreed to supervised video calls, 30 minutes, twice a week, with a child psychologist monitoring. The first call happened on a Wednesday evening. Rodrigo sat in his empty penthouse, laptop open, heart pounding. The video connected. Elena appeared on screen, sitting at a table in what looked like Misha's living room. A woman, the psychologist, sat beside her. Elena was coloring again. She didn't look at the camera. "Hi, Elena." Rodrigo's voice came out strained. It's Rodrigo. We talked before, at the meeting." Elena kept coloring. "I know who you are. How are you?" "Fine. What are you coloring?" "A dragon." "That's nice. I liked dragons when I was your age, too." No response, just the sound of crayon on paper. The psychologist prompted gently, "Elena, do you have anything you'd like to ask or say?" Elena finally looked at the camera. Her expression was flat, clinical. "Did you say sorry to those people, the ones whose family died?" "Yes, I'm meeting with all of them, to apologize and listen." "Did they forgive you?" Rodrigo hesitated. "No." "Good. Mama says sorry doesn't fix everything. She says sometimes you do things that can't be fixed." "Your mother is right. Are you going to try to be my dad now?" The question hit like a physical blow. I'd like to try, if you're willing to let me. I already have everything I need. I don't need you." She said it matter-of-factly. Not cruel, just true. Like stating that the sky was blue or water was wet. "I understand, but maybe we could get to know each other anyway? Even if you don't need me. Maybe we could— I have to finish my dragon." Elena went back to coloring. The psychologist mouthed, "That's okay," to Rodrigo, and let the silence stretch. The 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Rodrigo tried asking about school, about her favorite things, about anything. Elena gave one-word answers or ignored him entirely. When the timer went off, Elena closed her coloring book immediately. "Can I go now?" The psychologist nodded. Elena left without saying goodbye. The second call went the same way. The third was slightly worse. Elena seemed annoyed to be there, answering questions with increasing impatience. After 20 minutes, she looked directly at the camera and said, "I don't want to do this anymore." Rodrigo felt panic rise. "Elena, please, I know this is hard, but I don't want to talk to you. You're boring, and you make Mama sad. Can I be done?" The psychologist intervened. "Elena, we agreed to try." "I'm trying. I tried 3 times. I don't like it. Mama said I could stop if I didn't like it." She looked at the psychologist. Mama said I don't have to do things that make me uncomfortable. This makes me uncomfortable. The psychologist nodded slowly. That's fair. Okay, sweetie, we'll talk to your mom. Elena left. The screen went dark. That was the last call. Misha's lawyer sent an email the next day. Elena has exercised her right to decline further visitation at this time. Per the custody agreement, visitation is suspended pending psychological review. Mr. Young will be notified if and when Elena chooses to resume contact. Rodrigo read the email and understood with crushing certainty. His 5-year-old daughter had tried to know him and decided he wasn't worth the effort. She'd given him 3 chances. He'd failed all 3. The calls stopped, the door closed, and Rodrigo was left alone with exactly what he deserved. After the video calls ended, Rodrigo's lawyer filed a motion for in-person supervised visitation. The court granted it 3 weeks later, 2 hours every other Sunday, at a neutral location with a licensed social worker present. Rodrigo received the paperwork via email. The first visit was scheduled for Sunday, November 12th at 2 p.m. Location: Dr. Sarah Chen's office, a child psychologist who specialized in high-conflict custody situations. The office was in a converted brownstone in a quiet neighborhood, deliberately unremarkable. A place designed to feel safe for children who were navigating impossible situations. Rodrigo arrived at 1:40 p.m., 18 minutes early because he'd been too anxious to wait any longer at home. He'd spent the previous night awake, rehearsing what he'd say, imagining how it might go, cycling between hope and dread. He parked on the street and sat in his car for 10 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady his breathing. In the passenger seat sat 3 shopping bags. He'd spent hours selecting gifts: a $300 limited edition doll, porcelain face, hand-stitched dress, the kind collectors bought, a $500 toy kitchen set, top of the line, with realistic sound effects and LED lights. Designer dresses from Nordstrom, sizes 5T and 6T because he wasn't sure which she wore. A stuffed elephant that cost $150 because it was hypoallergenic and ethically sourced. He'd stood in the toy store feeling completely lost, wondering what 5-year-old girls liked, defaulting to price as a proxy for quality because he had no other framework. At 1:50, he gathered the bags and walked to the entrance. The building had a small placard: Dr. Sarah Chen, Child and Family Psychology. He pressed the buzzer. A woman's voice through the intercom. Mr. Young? Yes. Come up. 2nd floor. The door clicked open. Rodrigo climbed stairs that felt steeper than they should be, carrying bags that suddenly seemed absurd, excessive, desperate. The 2nd floor opened into a waiting room painted soft blue, with children's books on low shelves and toys organized in bins. Calm, intentional, nothing threatening. Doctor. Chen emerged from an inner office. She was maybe 40, wearing casual clothes, jeans, a sweater, deliberately not intimidating. Mr. Young, I'm Dr. Chen. Thank you for being early. She glanced at the shopping bags. What do you have there? Gifts? For Elena. I thought, I need you to put those away. Her tone was kind but firm. What? Why? Because this visit isn't about things, Mr. Young. It's about connection. Elena doesn't need expensive toys. She needs to see if you're safe, if you're genuine, if you're someone she wants to know. Gifts complicate that. They send a message that you're trying to buy her affection rather than earn it. Rodrigo felt his face flush. I wasn't trying to... I know, but that's how it will feel to her. Children are very attuned to transactional behavior. Please put them in your car. We'll start when you come back. Rodrigo stood holding the bags, feeling foolish and exposed. He'd spent thousands of dollars trying to solve a problem money couldn't fix. Again. He carried the bags back down to his car, shoving them in the trunk, and returned empty-handed. Dr. Chen led him to a small room with a table, 2 child-sized chairs, and 1 adult chair. Windows overlooking a small garden. Soft lighting. a shelf with books and puzzles. "You'll sit there." Dr. Chen indicated the adult chair. "Elena will sit across from you. I'll be present but mostly quiet unless intervention is needed. Elena knows she can leave whenever she wants. She's been briefed that this is voluntary and she has full control. Understood?" "Yes." "And Mr. Young? No pressure, no expectations. Let her lead. If she wants to be silent with her. If she wants to leave after 5 minutes, we let her leave. This is about her comfort, not your agenda." Rodrigo nodded, throat tight. At 1:58, the buzzer sounded. Dr. Chen went to answer it. Rodrigo heard voices downstairs. Misha's voice, calm and instructive. Elena's smaller voice, less clear. Footsteps on the stairs. The door opened. Elena walked in, holding Misha's hand. She was wearing jeans and a purple sweater, sneakers with Velcro straps. Her hair was in 2 puffs secured with sparkly hair ties. She looked so small, so alive, so completely uninterested in him. Her eyes swept the room, cataloging everything: the books, the windows, Dr. Chen, the chairs. Finally, they landed on Rodrigo. Her expression closed immediately, not afraid, not angry, just nothing, blank, neutral. The face of a child who'd decided this wasn't worth emotional investment. Misha knelt beside her. "Remember what we talked about?" Elena nodded. "You're in charge. You can leave whenever you want. Dr. Chen is here to make sure you're safe, and I'll be right downstairs in the waiting room. Okay?" "Okay." Misha kissed her forehead, then looked at Rodrigo. Her eyes held a warning. "Hurt my daughter, and I will destroy what's left of you." Then she left. Dr. Chen gestured to the small chair. "Elena, you can sit wherever feels comfortable." Elena walked to the chair across from Rodrigo and sat down. She didn't look at him. She looked at the bookshelf, the window, her own hands folded in her lap. Dr. Chen sat in a corner chair, present but unobtrusive. "Elena," she said gently, "Mr. Young would like to talk with you. You can respond or not respond, whatever feels right to you." Elena said nothing. Rodrigo cleared his throat. His hands were sweating. "Hi, Elena." No response. I know this is strange. I know you didn't ask for this, but I wanted to meet you, to talk with you, to try to—" He trailed off, unsure how to finish. Elena finally looked at him. Her gaze was steady, clinical, eerily mature. "Why?" The single word hit him like a challenge. "Why what? Why do you want to talk to me now?" Her voice was clear, controlled, not a child asking a simple question, a person demanding accountability. Rodrigo swallowed hard. "Because you're my daughter. You didn't want me before." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. "I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I was scared and I was wrong, and Mama showed me the letter." "The one your lawyers sent." Rodrigo felt his stomach drop. "You saw that?" "She read it to me. She said I should know the truth about who you are. You said you'd hurt her career if she didn't go away. You called her a liar. You said she was trying to trap you." Each sentence was delivered calmly, matter-of-factly, devastating in its accuracy. "Elena, why do you want me now? You said I wasn't worth dealing with. You gave Mama money to make me disappear. She didn't take it, but you tried. So why do you care now?" Rodrigo felt tears burning his eyes. This was his 5-year-old daughter calmly reciting the worst things he'd ever done. "I was wrong. I was scared. I didn't know how to be a father. I thought, Mama says scared people hurt people. When they're scared, they make other people feel bad instead of dealing with their feelings. Is that what you did?" "Yes." "Are you still scared?" Rodrigo paused. Honest answer or safe answer? He chose honest. "Yes. Right now, I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Of you, of this, of not being good enough, of you hating me." Elena considered this. "I don't hate you." For a moment, Rodrigo felt hope. Then she continued, "I don't know you enough to hate you. You're just a person Mama talks about sometimes. The one who left. The one who sent mean letters. The one who chose money over me. She said it so clinically, like discussing a historical figure. Not her father, just a person who'd made certain documented choices. I want to change that, Rodrigo said desperately. I want you to know me. I want to be my what? My dad? She tilted her head, curious. I don't need a dad. I have Mama. I have Auntie Ray and Auntie Jessica. I have my teacher Ms. Thomas and Mama's friend David who takes me to the park. I have people. I don't need you. Each word was a nail in a coffin. Maybe you don't need me, but maybe we could still know each other? Maybe we could— Mama says you killed people. Rodrigo froze. Dr. Chen tensed, ready to intervene. Elena continued, her voice still calm. She says your company made something that caught on fire, and a mom and her kids died, because you didn't want to wait and make it safe. You wanted to make money fast. Is that true? Yes. Did you say sorry to them? Yes. I met with the families. I apologized. Did they forgive you? No. Good. Mama says sorry doesn't fix everything. She says sometimes you do things that can't be fixed. She says you have to live with what you did. Your mother is right. Elena studied him for a long moment. Then, Mama says scared people hurt people. Are you going to hurt me? No, never. I promise. I don't believe you. The words were delivered without malice. Just truth. You hurt Mama. You tried to hurt her job. You made her scared when she was pregnant with me. You hurt those other people by not keeping them safe. Mama says people who hurt people usually keep hurting people. Why would you be different? Rodrigo had no answer. How do you prove change to a 5-year-old who's already seen the pattern? I'm trying to be different, he finally said. I'm in therapy. I'm taking classes. I'm trying to learn how to be better. Okay, Elena stood up. Can I go now? We still have an hour and 40 minutes. I don't want to be here anymore. Dr. Chen said I could leave whenever I want. Dr. Chen stood. That's true, Elena. You can absolutely leave. Is there anything else you'd like to say or ask first? Elena looked at Rodrigo one more time. Maybe you'll be different. Maybe you won't. But I don't have to wait and see. I have everything I need already. Then she walked to the door, opened it, and left. Rodrigo heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard Misha's voice. All ready, baby? I'm done. He's sad, but I don't care. Can we get ice cream? Of course, sweetheart. The door downstairs opened and closed. They were gone. Dr. Chen sat back down. That was difficult. How are you feeling? Rodrigo couldn't speak. He put his head in his hands. She's 5 years old and she's already written me off. She's 5 years old and she's very clear about her boundaries. That's actually quite healthy. She thinks I'm going to hurt her. You did hurt her. You hurt her mother. From Elena's perspective, you're a documented danger. She's protecting herself. What do I do? Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. You keep showing up. You don't push. You don't demand. You let her set the pace. And you accept that she might never want a relationship. That's the consequence of your choices 5 years ago. She'll never forgive me. Maybe not. Or maybe in 10 years, after you've actually become someone different, she'll reconsider. But Mr. Young, you don't get to do this for forgiveness. You have to do it because it's right, whether she ever acknowledges it or not. Rodrigo left the office 40 minutes later, hollow and broken. When he got home, he opened his laptop, considered sending the gifts to Elena's house anyway, maybe if she saw them, maybe if she opened them, maybe expensive things would show her he cared. He spent 2 hours having them wrapped and delivered, professional wrapping service, ribbons and bows. A card that said, "For Elena, I'm sorry, I want to know you. Love, Rodrigo." The packages arrived at Misha's brownstone the next afternoon. Elena opened them with Misha watching. The doll, the kitchen set, the dresses, the elephant. Elena examined each one carefully, then looked at her mother. What should I do with these? What do you want to do with them? Elena thought for a moment. Can we give them to kids who don't have anything? Like at the shelter you donate to? Misha felt her heart break and swell simultaneously. Yes, baby, we can do that. Good, I don't want them. He's trying to buy me. You said people who can't love you try to buy you instead. I did say that. Was I mean? To not want them? Misha pulled her daughter close. No, sweetheart, you were honest. That's never mean. That evening, Misha posted a photo on Instagram. Elena surrounded by the unopened gifts, looking at the camera seriously. The caption read, "My daughter received gifts today from her biological father. She's choosing to donate them to children in need. I'm raising her to know her worth isn't measured in things, and that you can't purchase what you should have given freely from the start. Love isn't bought. Presence isn't bought. Accountability isn't bought." The post went viral in 6 hours. By morning, major outlets were running it. 5-year-old rejects deadbeat dad's guilt gifts, donates to charity instead. Elena Harper shows more character at age 5 than her father has at 34. CEO's daughter chooses compassion over expensive bribes. Rodrigo saw the headlines, saw the photo of his daughter surrounded by things he'd bought, choosing to give them away, saw the comments. Thousands of people praising Elena's maturity, thousands more condemning him. He sat in his empty penthouse, looking at the city lights, and realized with brutal clarity, his daughter didn't want his money. She didn't want his things. She didn't want him. And unlike every other problem he'd ever faced, there was no amount of wealth or strategy or effort that would change her mind. She was 5 years old, and she'd already decided he wasn't worth it. The visits continued every other Sunday. Elena showed up. Misha made sure she honored the court order, but she brought coloring books and did homework, and largely ignored Rodrigo unless directly asked a question. Dr. Chen documented it all. Minimal engagement, child maintains emotional distance, father attempting connection, child consistently deflecting. After 6 visits, Elena started bringing headphones. She'd sit across from Rodrigo listening to audiobooks, physically present, but mentally gone. When Rodrigo protested to Dr. Chen, she said, "She's complying with the court order. She's in the room. She's not obligated to perform relationship for your benefit." By visit 8, Elena started bringing a friend, a girl from school named Maya. They'd color together and giggle and completely exclude Rodrigo from their bubble. He sat there, an audience to his daughter's life, never a participant. After visit 10, Rodrigo asked Dr. Chen, "Is this working? Is any of this working?" Define working. Is she getting to know me? Am I building any kind of connection? Dr. Chen looked at him with professional compassion. "Mr. Young, you're getting exactly what you're owed. Presence without connection. Proximity without intimacy. You're in her life technically, but she's made very clear you're not in her heart. And that's her right. That's the consequence you're living with. Forever? Maybe, maybe not. But if you're doing this for a payoff, for an eventual moment where she forgives you and calls you dad, you need to stop. That may never come. You have to show up because it's right, and not because you expect a reward." Rodrigo kept showing up every other Sunday, 2 hours, watching his daughter color and read and exist in a space where he was irrelevant, living proof that you can't undo abandonment with money or time or desperate apologies. Some children forgive, some don't. Elena Harper had made her choice, and Rodrigo Young had to live with it. 6 months after the press conference, Young Enterprises stabilized. Marcus, as new CEO, restructured everything. He implemented the safety protocols Rodrigo had ignored. He rebuilt the culture from the ground up. He settled the lawsuits. Every family received full compensation, funded by Harper Capital's investment and what remained of company reserves. The stock price recovered slowly. Employees returned. The brand underwent rebranding. New name, new mission statement, a new leadership team that actually valued human life over quarterly targets. Marcus gave interviews about the transformation. "We're building a company our children can be proud of, where safety isn't negotiable, where people matter more than profit." He never mentioned Rodrigo by name. He didn't have to. Everyone knew who he was talking about. Rodrigo watched it all from a distance. He'd been paid out as agreed. His equity converted to cash at pre-scandal valuation. $8 billion. More money than most people accumulated in 10 lifetimes. He was, by any financial measure, wildly successful. He was also completely unemployable. 3 companies approached him about advisory roles in those first months. All 3 withdrew their offers after backlash. Social media erupted each time. "You're hiring the CEO who killed people?" Protests threatened. Boycotts loomed. The companies backed away quietly, releasing statements about cultural fit concerns. No board would seat him. No startup would take his angel investment. His name was poison, toxic, a liability that no amount of expertise could offset. He'd violated the unwritten rule. You could fail spectacularly in business, but you couldn't kill people and abandon children and expect a second act. Silicon Valley had limits. He'd found them. Rodrigo spent his days in his penthouse. He went to therapy twice a week as mandated. He took the parenting classes required by the custody agreement, sitting in rooms with divorced parents and foster caregivers, learning about attachment theory and developmental psychology, things he should have cared about 5 years ago. And every other Sunday, he drove to Dr. Chen's office for his 2 hours with Elena. The visits became a ritual of quiet rejection. Elena showed up because the court said she had to. She brought homework, coloring books, novels meant for kids twice her age. She'd sit across from Rodrigo and exist in his proximity without ever actually engaging. "How was school this week?" "Fine." "What did you learn?" "Stuff." "Are you making friends?" "Yes." One-word answers delivered in a tone that made clear the conversation was an obligation, not a desire. Sometimes she brought homework, math worksheets, reading assignments. She'd work silently, bent over the table, pencil-scratching paper. Once, Rodrigo saw she was struggling with subtraction. "Do you want help with that?" Elena looked up, her expression flat. "No. I'm good at math. I don't need your help." She went back to the worksheet, figuring it out herself, taking twice as long rather than accept assistance from him. When Rodrigo asked about her interests, she deflected. When he tried to share things about himself, she stared at him with polite disinterest, the way you might listen to a stranger's boring story on an elevator. When the 2 hours ended, she stood immediately, gathered her things, and left without saying goodbye. Every single time. Dr. Chen watched it all with professional detachment. After the 12th visit, Rodrigo stayed behind after Elena left. "Is this working? Is any of this getting better?" Dr. Chen chose her words carefully. "She's engaging with the structure. She's showing up. That's something. She barely speaks to me. She won't let me help her. She leaves the second time is up. She's punishing you, Mr. Young. Children understand betrayal. They may not have the language for it, but they feel it deeply. Elena is protecting herself by maintaining distance. She's decided you're not safe, that you're not worth investing in emotionally. Will she ever forgive me?" Dr. Chen looked at him with something like pity. "That's not a question I can answer. Some children forgive absent parents, some don't. Some take decades to process it. Elena is exceptionally intelligent and emotionally aware. She knows exactly what happened. She knows you chose to abandon her. Whether she can forgive that, that's entirely up to her, and you don't get to pressure her into it. So I just keep showing up to be ignored?" "Yes, because that's what accountability looks like. You don't get the redemption arc you want. You get the consequence you earned." Rodrigo left those sessions feeling emptier each time. Then came the Instagram post that broke something fundamental in him. He'd made the mistake of checking Misha's public account. She didn't post often, but when she did, It was curated perfection. Harper Capital milestones, Elena's achievements, glimpses of their life. This post appeared on a Sunday evening. A photo of Elena, age 6 now, sitting on the shoulders of a man Rodrigo didn't recognize, Asian, early 40s, handsome in an approachable way. They were at a park, golden hour lighting, Elena laughing with pure joy, her arms spread wide like wings. The man's hands held her ankles steady, his face tilted up toward her, smiling. The caption, "Elena's favorite person surprised us at the park today. Some people show up when it matters, some people stay." Comments poured in. "David is such a great guy. Papa David and Elena are the cutest. She's so lucky to have him." Rodrigo read the comments until his vision blurred. Papa David. He searched David Chen immediately. Pediatric surgeon, Columbia Medical, published researcher, volunteer work with Doctors Without Borders. Profile after profile of a man who was objectively good, kind, present, everything Rodrigo had never been. He scrolled through more photos on Misha's account. David teaching Elena to ride a bike. David helping her bake cookies, both covered in flour. David reading to her on the couch. Elena asleep on his lap. Book open across his chest. A family, complete, happy, without Rodrigo. More photos appeared over the following months. David and Misha at charity galas. David and Elena at a science museum. Halloween. Elena dressed as a scientist, David as her assistant, matching lab coats. Then the photo that destroyed him. Misha's left hand, diamond ring catching light. Caption, "She said yes." David had proposed. Misha said yes. Elena would have a stepfather, a man who chose to show up, who chose to stay, who would be there for birthdays and school plays and every moment Rodrigo had forfeited. The wedding announcement came 3 months later. Small ceremony, family only. Elena was flower girl. The photos showed her beaming, holding Misha's hand on one side and David's on the other. 3 people who'd chosen each other, built something real, moved forward without him. Rodrigo found out about Elena's kindergarten winter concert from the court liaison. As legal father, now he had the right to attend school events. He didn't ask permission. He just showed up. The school auditorium was packed. Parents crowded into folding chairs. Kids in costumes peeked from behind curtains. Rodrigo sat in the back row, alone, hoping to go unnoticed. The program started. 20 minutes of kindergarten performances, songs off-key, forgotten lines, pure chaos. Then Elena's class performed a short play about winter animals. Elena played a fox. She had 3 lines and delivered them perfectly, her voice clear and confident. When the play ended and the children bowed, Elena scanned the audience. Her eyes found Misha and David in the 3rd row. She waved enthusiastically. They waved back. She didn't even glance at the back of the auditorium where Rodrigo sat. After the show, families gathered for refreshments. Rodrigo watched from the doorway. Elena ran straight to David, who scooped her up and spun her around. "You were amazing, sweetheart. Did you see my part? Did I do good?" "You were perfect. I'm so proud of you." Elena hugged him tight, called him Papa without hesitation. Misha appeared, kissed David, then kissed Elena's forehead. "My little star." They were a unit, seamless, complete. Elena looked over David's shoulder and saw Rodrigo. Her expression didn't change, didn't harden, didn't soften, just nothing. Recognition without emotion. She whispered something to David. He turned, saw Rodrigo and nodded politely. Neutral, protective. Rodrigo nodded back and left. He drove home through streets blurred by tears he wouldn't admit were falling. That night, he poured a drink he didn't finish and stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows looking at the city below. Lights glittering. Lives being lived. Families together. He had $8 billion and nobody to spend it on. No one to call, no one who wanted to hear from him. His mother still refused his calls. His uncles sent holiday cards to his business address, polite and distant. His former friends had quietly stopped inviting him to anything. He existed in a bubble of wealth and isolation. 1 year after the boardroom confrontation, Misha requested a meeting. Her assistant called Carmen, who relayed the message. Ms. Harper would like to meet with Mr. Young. No lawyers, no recordings, just a conversation. He can choose the location. Rodrigo picked a quiet cafe in Brooklyn. Neutral territory, low profile. They met on a Tuesday afternoon. Misha arrived in jeans and a sweater. No armor, no lawyers. She looked tired, not defeated, not victorious, just tired. They sat across from each other in a corner booth. Neither ordered anything at first. Finally, Rodrigo broke the silence. "Why did you want to meet?" Misha was quiet for a long moment. "I wanted to tell you something. I wanted you to know I got what I wanted." "What?" "Revenge. Justice. Whatever you want to call it. You're publicly humiliated. You've paid financially. Your reputation is destroyed. Elena wants nothing to do with you. By any measure, I won." Rodrigo studied her face. "You don't look like you won." Misha's composure cracked slightly. "Because I didn't. Not really. I wanted you to suffer. And you do. I can see it. But Elena suffers too." "What do you mean?" "She has nightmares about abandonment. She wakes up crying, asking if I'm going to leave her like you did. She's 6 years old and she's already building walls, protecting herself from attachment because she learned early that fathers disappear. I taught her to hate you. I thought I was protecting her. But in teaching her you were a villain, I taught her to fear love, to question whether anyone will stay. That's on me." Rodrigo felt his chest tighten. "I didn't want that. I never wanted to hurt her." "I know, but you did. And I made it worse by making sure she understood exactly how much you hurt us. I wanted her armed with truth. But truth has weight, and she's carrying it." "What do I do?" Misha looked at him directly. "Nothing. You stay away. You send the court-ordered support. You attend the mandated visits if she allows them, which she stopped doing. But you don't push. You don't demand. You don't try to force connection. You live with what you did. That's the consequence." "For how long?" "Maybe forever. Maybe in 20 years, she'll be in therapy unpacking all of this and she'll decide to reach out. Maybe she never will. But, Rodrigo, you don't get closure. You don't get forgiveness. You get to live with the knowledge that you had a daughter and you chose to erase her, and she chose to return the favor." Misha stood to leave. "I'm marrying David next month. He's adopting Elena. She's taking his name. You'll still be listed as biological father legally, but she'll be Elena Chen Harper. That's what she wants. A family that chose her. And I'm just erased? You erased yourself 5 years ago. We're just making it official." She left. Rodrigo sat in the cafe alone for another hour. The visits stopped entirely after that. Elena refused to attend. Court couldn't force a 6-year-old to sit in a room if she didn't want to. The sessions were suspended indefinitely. Rodrigo received the notification via email. Cold, clinical, final. He kept living, kept going to therapy, kept existing in his wealth and isolation. Months passed. Elena's 7th birthday came and went. He wasn't invited. He saw photos on social media. Backyard party, friends, cake, happiness. David swinging her around, Misha taking pictures. Family, complete without him. Her 8th birthday, her 9th, each one documented online. Each one showing a child thriving, laughing, loved, each one without him. On her 10th birthday, Rodrigo made the mistake of searching her name. Articles appeared. Elena Chen Harper, a daughter of venture capitalist Misha Harper and surgeon David Chen, accepted to prestigious Anderson Academy. A photo accompanied the article. Elena, at age 10, standing between Misha and David, confident and brilliant. Wearing a school uniform, smiling, beautiful, The caption, Elena Chen Harper with her parents. Chen Harper. She'd taken David's name fully, hyphenated it with her mother's. Rodrigo wasn't anywhere in her identity, not even a ghost. Erased. He closed the laptop. The screen went dark. His reflection stared back at him. A man of 50 now, silver in his hair, lines around his eyes, $8 billion in the bank, awards on walls, an empty penthouse with nobody to share it with. He'd spent 15 years trying to process what happened, 15 years in therapy unpacking why he'd made those choices. The 15 years living with consequences that never got easier. He'd tried early on to date. Women saw his name and ghosted. The few who didn't know eventually found out and left. Nobody wanted to build a life with the man who abandoned his daughter and killed people through negligence. He was professionally exiled, romantically impossible, familiarly alone. His mother had died 3 years earlier. They'd reconciled slightly at the end. She let him visit in hospice, let him hold her hand, but she never said she forgave him, just looked at him with sad eyes and said, "I wish you'd been different." Then she was gone. He had nobody, no partner, no children who claimed him, no family, no close friends, just wealth that bought nothing that mattered. On Elena's 15th birthday, he saw one more photo, her quinceañera. And Misha had thrown her a party. Elena in a beautiful dress, surrounded by family and friends, David walking her through a traditional father-daughter dance, Elena laughing, hugging him, calling him dad without the papa now, just dad, fully, completely. Rodrigo stared at the photo until his eyes burned. That should have been him, could have been him, would have been him if he'd made one different choice 15 years ago, one phone call, one decision to show up instead of send lawyers, one moment of courage instead of cowardice. But he'd chosen convenience, chosen his company, chosen himself, and his daughter chose to erase him right back. Some mistakes don't get redemption arcs. Some children don't forgive. Some bridges burn so completely that all the money in the world can't rebuild them. Rodrigo Young learned this too late, and he would learn it every day for the rest of his life. He stood at his window that night, looking at the city, and understood with brutal finality he'd won everything and lost the only thing that mattered. He was exactly what he'd built himself to be: successful, wealthy, powerful, alone. And his daughter, somewhere in that glittering city, was living a full and happy life that had no room for him in it. She'd written him out of her story completely, and he'd never get written back in. That was the consequence. That was justice. That was what happened when you treated people as disposable and discovered, too late, that you were the one who'd been discarded. Rodrigo closed his eyes and felt the weight of 15 years, and all the years still to come, pressing down on him like gravity. This was his life now. This was forever. He'd learned what couldn't be bought. He'd learned what couldn't be fixed. He'd learned that some doors, once closed, never open again, and he would carry that knowledge, that loss, that hollow victory, until the day he died, alone.